Today is Vision Sunday, and so our hope is to just take a pause. If you're used to coming here, we usually dive into a passage or a teaching of Jesus and try to understand how it applies to our life. But this last month, we've taken a pause, and we've done this series called This Is Us, where we've taken 4 weeks, kind of looked behind the curtain, so to speak, of everything that Forest City is about. So hopefully that's been helpful for you, refreshing. And so today we're jumping into Vision Sunday. So it's going to look a little bit different than our normal Sundays. It's sort of like a town hall or State of the Union type of thing. State of the Union makes it sound like a lot more important. Anyways, more exciting than hopefully State of the Union. You ever watch those? Anyways, so Helen Keller. Helen Keller was blind and deaf at the age of 9, and she famously said this: the only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision. The only thing worse than being blind, she said, is having sight but no vision. See, there's something about the human experience. There's something about being a human being that we need to have a sense of vision, a direction, a purpose for our lives. And so that's why we think it's so integral, so important for us to pause and to speak into what the vision is here at Forest City. Because we believe it's essential for this community to thrive and essential for you as a human being to understand the direction that we're moving. So a few reasons why we think vision is important. Firstly is vision creates clarity. Clarity is a value. Create clarity is a value of ours. And we know that different churches operate different ways, and different organizations and families, they have different visions, different directions that they're moving in. But we wanted to take a moment to clarify where we're going, what's the priority, and what are we putting near the front of the to-do list, so to speak. Secondly, around that is vision also creates unity. It creates unity and understanding what we're prioritizing together, the things that we can pray for, serve for, help, and get excited about. There are many important things. There are many important things that churches are doing. There are many important things that we should be doing. But the reality is we can't do all those things, and especially if we want to do those things well. So we have to choose a few things at a time and prioritize that. Not saying that other things are not important or shouldn't be done, but this is what we as a leadership team have decided and have discerned what we feel is like a priority for us moving forward. Vision only makes sense, though, based on where you've been, where you're at, and, of course, where you're going. And so that's kind of the outline of where we're going to take you today, is describing the season, where we've come from, where we're currently at, and then what we feel God's calling us into in this next season. So it's exciting. Anything else?
I think that's good. You pretty much covered it. So we're going to jump right in. We don't want to waste any time, but we're going to just give you, for some of you, this is old hat. You've heard this like more than once. You could probably come up here and do this, but we're going to talk a quick, brief history of where we came from. And for that, we're just going to do a really quick survey of the last 2 years. Forest City's story starts at the end of another story. And a church in Burnaby, as Jordan mentioned earlier, made the decision to close their doors during COVID. And in that season, we were approached with the opportunity to plant a new church in this building. And so to make a long story short, we said yes to that finally. And packed up our little house in a U-Haul and moved over here from Victoria. And in that summer, a group of us began to pray and imagine what it would look like for a new expression of the church to begin to become rooted here. And so we would continue to pray and discern. And I just went through my photos this last week, and I realized it was 2 years ago this past week that we held our first interest night. We didn't have a name. We were like, please come and join us at the church that actually you might get to choose the name. So enter your name in this box and we'll draw the best name. Just kidding, that's not how we picked the name. But so we began this process of a small team, and we had prayer nights, and we had these interest evenings. And then as we moved into the new year and we began to invite people from around the community we moved into having what we called launch gatherings. We had them in the lounge over there, which looked very different in that season. But we did a lot of work. When I say we, I don't just mean Jordan and I, because electrical things scare me. So, but we had an entire team that was behind both the spiritual investment in this building and also the physical investment, that this space around you when you walk in, even the outside of the building, looked very different than it does now. And so there was a lot of upgrading and changing and transformation that was happening both physically and spiritually. And so we continued to meet on a semi-regular basis, and then after Easter of 2022, we launched into weekly gatherings where we began to really pick up momentum, and we began to suss out the values. We came up with a name at some point, which has given a lot of color and shading into what Forest City is and what that looks like in a practical, hands-on way. And then through the summer, we continued to meet and have barbecues, and the team continued to grow, and people began to find their place of passion and service. And we eventually launched in September of 2022 as Forest City Church, and it was an incredibly victorious day. Both just that the building was still standing given the random things that had gone wrong, and burst pipes and parking lot issues and all sorts of things, but also just a really beautiful testimony to what God could do in a space that was dark and empty, and now it was full of life and legacy. So, yeah.
So I don't think there's a Sunday that goes by that we're not grateful for this space, because we were in this space when there was nobody here except for our kids running around. And so we're just so grateful every Sunday of how God has brought you and this community is forming in this past year. So that's where we were, and now I want to move to like where we're currently at. And so how do we let you know where Forest City is at? Well, if you went into the hospital today, let's hope you don't. Let's hope that doesn't happen. But if you did, probably one of the first things that they would do is they'd make you wait for 5 hours in a waiting. I'm sorry. Okay, you would go in and you would see a doctor, and they would check your vitals, right? They would check to see how your vitals were. Most times they're even taking blood work now. They're trying to get metrics of your status of health, how the vitality, or maybe drawing circles around the issues are. And the same is with the life of a church. There's different metrics that help us understand where we're at or how things are going. Now, metrics aren't everything, but they do tell us something. Just like some of these vital statistics or the different things, the different metrics that you get when you go in the hospital, they'll tell you different things about how is your health. And so what I want to do is just to outline kind of where we're at. I just want to list through some metrics or some realities of where Forest City is currently at, so you have an understanding of where we've been to where we are right now. Sound good? Yeah. Great. Got one thumbs up. That's all I need, and I'm going with it. Okay. So let's look at a few metrics really quickly here. So attendance. Currently, right now, we're up 33% of where we were last year around where we launched in the fall season. Some of you were in this room back then when there was a lot less of us, so you would probably see the growth in that. And we're not just only up in this space, but our kids' space as well is also growing, and we're excited about that. Giving. Right now, currently, at the end of September, we're on track to exceed our giving budget for 2023. So we're probably going to exceed it this next coming month or so. So that's really great. So the budget that we set out for what we're hoping for giving to look like, we're going to surpass
You're
that.
a generous bunch.
A generous bunch. Not only that, we're up 75% of giving this year than we were from last year, which kind of makes sense because we didn't start services till September of last year. However, though, I could take these stats and make them look really skewed. There was that launch team, a core group of individuals that faithfully gave and served this place, believing in what this could be. And so we're so thankful for that. But giving and your generosity, we're certainly on pace and excited about that. We're in a great position financially. Serving. We currently are up 40% from where we started on launch Sunday. So we have 40% more of you serving on Sundays or in small groups or different community partners or different areas like that. And so we have a high percentage of our church that are invested in here and serve here. And many of you give up your time, energy to help make Forest City happen. So we're so excited about that. Groups, we currently have 4 groups that meet across Metro Vancouver, which are all quite swelling and full, and lots going on with that, but we're excited about what are happening with groups. We'll speak about that more in a moment. And finally, lastly, community investment. Last year, we gave over $16,000 to different community partners and different missionary organizations and different partners that we have outside this place, which doesn't sound like a lot, but for a small church of our size and for just only gathering for 4 months, we're really excited about that. And we continually want to move that percentage up in terms of how much resource we give out to the different partners that we have or the different places that need it. So Forest City, right now, currently, there's probably 3 things that we prioritize, 3 things that are most important to us that we put a lot of our energy and resources to. That's the Sunday gathering, what you're all part of right now. It's our small groups, people meeting in people's homes across the city throughout the week, and community engagement, finding places for us to serve with community partners in different places that are outside of this building. Those would probably be the 3 things that we put a lot of our time and energy to right now at this place of where Forest City is at.
Yeah, so as far as what that looks like as we look to the future, we're really excited that we're at a season now that it's like, okay, what's next? What are the next priorities for us? So part 3 of this conversation is, where are we going? And we have 3 priorities that we've zeroed in on. And priority number 1, these are not in any order by any means, but priority number 1 is next gen. Now, it's a misnomer often in the church that, the spiritual development of kids is the youth pastor's responsibility, or parents, or the kids department, or I've registered my kids for Christian school. But we really believe, and we look at Scripture, there's Psalm 78 verse 4 says, "We will not hide them from their descendants. We will tell the next generation the praiseworthy deeds of the Lord, His power, and the wonders He has done." It's a we, it's an us. And we really believe that. And we've often, you've heard us say this many, many times over, but when we talk about the imagery that a forest provides us, we talk about the importance of the saplings, and that the saplings play a big role in the future and the longevity of the forest. But the saplings need the old growth trees to protect them as they're growing, as they're developing. And that's a group effort. And a study that was commissioned just over 10 years ago, a Canadian study actually, which I feel like we usually have to borrow the American studies, but this is a Canadian study from the Evangelical Fellowship of Canada, and this data is incredibly compelling. I actually quote this study a lot, and then when I went back to check it, I realized I had it wrong. So we're gonna just straighten that out. So any of you that have heard me say this before, but the study is titled "Hemorrhaging Faith," and it's talking about where is the disconnect for students? When do they lose faith? And often we believe that is university age. But they have actually found that the divergence of faith, where kids began to distance themselves, actually starts in grade 6. It is not high school. That it is an important intentionality of discipleship from a young age. And what they found as they continued this study was what made an entirely significant difference wasn't the cool youth program or the Christian school they attended. Actually, what it was that they were enmeshed in the community, that there was at least 2 individuals who had, not in their family, that were outside of their immediate family, that actually knew their name and knew a couple of things about them, things they were interested in. So we really believe that in order to be investing in the next generation, it's about community. And so therefore, it's a big deal. We need to prioritize it. And so as we look to the future, there's no age limit on discipleship. We want to create fully formed disciples from a young age. That obviously looks different depending on the age, but we want that spiritual investment at every age. And so therefore, there's 2 areas that we are leaning into in a big way with a lot of intentionality. And the first one is our kids' focus. And our kids' Sunday attendance is growing rapidly, which is wonderful. We're so happy. And that also creates a bit of a pressure on our kids' team. You know, it doesn't matter how many people come through and sit up here, the worship team is still going to be the same size, or if what we need for sound is still going to be the same size. But downstairs, that makes a difference. The more kids, that means the more resources and the more team, et cetera. And so we know that when your kids want to be here, you want to be here. And we know when you feel good that you can take your kids to a kids service that they're enjoying and they feel settled, they feel secure, you're able to feel settled and secure and lean into your own discipleship. So this is a priority for us, and you're going to see some of those changes coming both downstairs with our check-in, check-out process. We're doing some upgrading there just to make some room. But also the other thing is we are growing both in size but also in demographics downstairs. We have a significant preschool age that is starting to grow, as well as we have our elementary school age. And you would know, whether you have kids or not, 3-year-olds are very different from 12-year-olds, and we want to be as hands-on as we need to be depending on the age, relevancy, engagement, etc. So we are working right now, what does it look like to create 2 programs downstairs? What does that look like spatially, resources, team, etc. So those are things we are currently putting our minds and budgets and things towards, and working with our kids team because we want that program to be something that kids are truly getting something out of it. It is not a babysitting service, it is discipleship. So if you're on the kids team or you have kids, there are some other things coming, and you'll hear about those in the coming months, but that's one of the important parts for us. And secondly, youth. And so we already recognize there is a group of students that are attending on Sundays, and we see you, and we're so glad for your patience as we figure out what it looks like to pastor those in junior and senior high. And we want to be a church that does things with intentionality and sustainability. And so as we figure out what does it look like still being a small church, how are we pastoring young people well? How are we engaging their faith and their development, etc.? And so we're moving at a slower pace, but we want to make sure that whatever we put our hearts, budgets, etc. towards, that it's something that we can continue on for a long time and build upon, not just a flash in the pan. And so youth, we see you. Parents of youth, we know that this is a priority for you, and we don't have a lot of specifics to come to you with at this point, but no, we are actively working on figuring out what that looks like, who is going to champion that cause, who is going to wave the youth flag, because we know it's important, and we want it to be a priority because, as I said, the vitality of a forest is, the future is those saplings, so we want them to grow. Jord, I'm going to let you take it away on the third part of that.
Yeah, the last part around next gen that's important for us that we're looking to put some intentionality and focus in is our daycare. You might not be aware of this, but we have a daycare that meets here from Monday to Friday in our basement. We have about 25 spots at our daycare, so it's loud here during the week, lots happening. And we have a great daycare team and a great director. Her name's Red, who oversees that, which we're really excited about. But we're intentionally talking with licensing and our team of like what could it look like for us to expand that daycare to make more spots. And there's several reasons for this. The first reason is if you have kids and you live in Metro Vancouver, you know that daycare spots are limited. It's a real issue in our city. And we want Forest City to be known in Greater Vancouver of being a place that champions families. And so we think it's really a joy and a privilege that every week we get to love families in an intentional way by creating great experiences for their little ones. And so we're looking at what it could look like to expand that. So, because we have a wait list of over 50 names right now on it. I think we're already full for like next fall of September, like a year away. And so we just are looking to create more spaces for that. The second reason why we're considering this conversation is to be better stewards of this space. I don't know about you, but church experiences in the past for me was that these buildings are large. They take a lot of finances, a lot of oversight, a lot of resources to keep them going. And for many churches, all of that resources and time is just for maybe a couple hours on a Sunday, maybe another ministry or two throughout the week. So in terms of like good stewards of spaces or just the logistics of a space that costs so much money just to use for a couple hours doesn't really make sense. And so we want to use this space to its fullest potential, meaning that we want to open its doors and view it more as like a community center that the community can benefit from, rather than just a sacred temple that we just use for a couple hours on a Sunday, right? And so part of that is having more of that space dedicated to daycare and opening this up. And this allows us. So we have a couple rentals as well that use this space. We have sometimes one-offs that want different community partners that want to use a space, and we're always trying to open our doors to create space for people, which leads into the third reason. The daycare does provide some income for the church, and so a greater daycare could provide greater income. And the reason why this is significant to us is because we have a vision that more of what happens on a Sunday, or you're giving, that we're hoping that 100% of that, we're on our way, we're not there, but we're hoping 100% of what you give actually goes straight to ministry. Meaning everything that you give to Forest City goes to like ministry and staffing those ministries and different programs and to community different partners and things like that. And that these different rentals or business or different things we have fuel the overhead of a building like this. Because buildings cost money. I think this month we're going to drop $5,000 to fix our furnace. Next month it's probably going to be something else. We already put $180,000 into this space before we launched, it needed it. It really needed some love, right? And so buildings take a lot of financial things. And the building is not what's most important to us, but we need to steward it and care for it well. And so part of our thinking is how can we use this space that benefits the community, but also helps with some of the costs of a large building like this does cost. And so we're excited about that. So we're starting those conversations, and we're looking to potentially next year of slowly creating some more spots to help parents, but also to help some of the overhead of the cost of such a big building.
Yeah. So moving into our second priority, this is missional. And a lot of what we have talked about today is more around, individuals who are already coming to this space, whether that be daycare, Sunday, other ministry opportunities. But we, as much as we want to build generous, resilient disciples that are, going into your places and spaces every week, and the hope is that, of course, you are bringing the light and hope of Jesus. We also want to provide opportunities for ministry and generosity through the church. And so we want to prioritize that, and through that process, we have a few opportunities how we are missionally looking outside of this building and those people that already are familiar with Forest City Church.
This light's flickering. I just can't stand it.
I feel like there's a really good, it's the spirit joke that should be made, but I'm not going to make it. But we want to let you know about 3 areas. I didn't even notice, so I'm glad you noticed it, because everybody else behind us is noticing it, so the light is behind, the people are in front. Okay. So community engagement. A couple ways this year that we are continuing to put our intentions and resources towards. These would both be familiar to you, but we do a Christmas drive. We have a beautiful relationship with Windsor Elementary just down the street here on Imperial, and we have partnered with them the last couple years to assist families in need over the Christmas holidays, and that's looked different the last couple years, but we are continuing on with that this year, and we're excited to just let individuals in Burnaby know that we are here and we love them and we support them, and that is not conditional on them being here. We love to be over there with them, and we've just built a great relationship with the staff and administration over there. The second part of that is in our small groups. Part of our small group kind of our pillars is that we would be engaged with the community around us. And so each small group it's changed throughout the years, but each small group has somewhere that they are lending their time as a group towards. We have a group that's adopted some of the streets back here behind the church, and they're keeping those clean, as well as we've partnered with just different organizations around Burnaby and Metro Vancouver. So we really want our groups to be engaged with the needs in the community. So we will continue to do that and resource that over the next year. The second part of this is international missions, and probably news to most of you, there is a few missionaries that we support as a church that you're giving supports, and so we're excited to bring those forward and let you get. No, I shouldn't say let you. That sounds like we have a secret, but we want to let you get to know them more and see where that giving is going, because it's beautiful what is happening overseas, and we get to play a very small part in just watering those seeds over there. So you'll hear more about some of those missionaries in the next few months. And then lastly, Alpha. And Alpha is very near and dear to our hearts, and we've taken a bit of a pause on it this fall, but we will.
Could you just take a moment to explain what Alpha is?
Yes, I'm getting there.
Oh, sorry. I'll sit here.
He's had caffeine this morning. Can you tell? He's so excited.
I'm turning off my mic.
Anyways, we're not running the Alpha chorus this fall, but we are going to be running it in the spring. And Alpha is a beautiful 12-week journey that is designed for those that are not already connected with the church, are followers of Jesus. It is a beautiful. It's usually done on a weeknight. There's often a meal or snacks that you're gathering around tables and you're having discussion. It's a video series that's been very, very well done. And it is just going through the questions and the hang-ups and how can I have faith, and who is the Holy Spirit, and all of these questions, like why did Jesus have to die, and questions that are relevant that people are asking that they're just like, I'm not sure about this whole faith thing. And so we want to continue to provide opportunities for you to invite people in your life that it's like, hey, I know there's a lot of questions. We have this wonderful program that's running. It's literally run all over the world in all sorts of different churches. And so we want to continue to offer that opportunity and onboard people, because it's often the front steps of the house, so to speak, that people feel comfortable standing on the front porch, but they're not quite sure they want to go in the house yet. And so we want to provide that opportunity. And there's probably those of you in the room that are like, I actually would really like to take that. And we would really love to have you join us for that. So that's going to be starting in the spring, so stay tuned. But we really believe that that's an important part of what we do.
Yeah, so I think through all these priorities, what we're trying to communicate is the areas that we're putting a focus. Mm-hmm. We're going to put more resources, time, money, staffing hours to those things. And so we're hopefully as we get through the next year, we can provide some more color and context to that. But we're just letting you know these are the priorities that we feel as a leadership team, as we've got together and discerned that this is where we want to put our energy. So the first priority was next generation. We talked through some of those things. The second priority is have a greater emphasis of our missional component of a church and how we're supporting those outside of this place. And then our third one is a small group focus. So we have small groups, and they've been gathering actually before we launched. But we, as our church has grown, so have our small groups. And we want to create a greater emphasis on how we're supporting small group leaders, how we're resourcing them, how we're creating some emphasis around that area. Our hope is that each small group is around 12 individuals. That's kind of like, we feel like that's a good number to have for a small group dynamic to work. I think all 4 of our small groups are all over 12 at this stage. And so our small groups are swelling this fall season, and we've actually had to close a couple of them because they physically don't have any more space. But we're intentionally working of creating some new spaces and empowering some new leaders to step into creating more spaces in the room. But we're just looking to continue to have a greater put hours, resources, and times to creating a church that's just not gathering on Sunday, but is intentionally getting in circles and forming community. The metric that we're always working with is we hope 50% of our Sunday attendance is in a small group. That's the goal. Because when we're in a small group, it moves us from being a consumeristic event to a community, to a family. And we think that happens best not in rows, but in circles. And so we just really value small groups, and we're not, our leadership team was actually thought we should double down and put more time and energy into that instead of just keeping them as they are and just a thing that we do. We believe that maybe some of the most powerful things that could happen in individuals' lives might not happen in this room, but might happen in a living room this fall. And so we want to position them, create space for that, and so we're just putting a greater intentionality with that. So our priorities, we want to focus on next generation, missional, and small groups. So what does that mean for you? Maybe you've been here for a while, maybe you haven't, but we just always want to communicate what does it look like to commit to this family. Maybe you're getting excited, hopefully, and energized about what's happening here, what God is doing, and it's an exciting times, and this is a lot of exciting metrics and a lot of exciting things to report. But we want to take a moment just to communicate what does it look like to be part of this family. And we got 4 things for you really quickly. The first one is to attend. We think the Sunday gathering is important. We think there's no quick shortcuts for building relational connection with other people. It takes time and consistency. And so if you're in the city, we'd love for you to prioritize this Sunday gathering and make this a priority in your week, along with, if you're a part of a small group, to continue with that commitment. Maybe that commitment's wavered over the season. We'd love for you to recommit. We don't know how to build a relational community besides taking time and consistency to do it. There is no shortcuts. And so for this family, we think you get the most out of it when you invest in it, you commit to it, and you attend to those different things. Secondly is to serve. As I mentioned earlier, there's many of you that serve in many different capacities. We have an army of volunteers that make Forest City happen. We would not be able to function if we didn't have the volunteers that serve. The majority of what we do is volunteer run. And so we believe that God's gifted you, God's given you unique strengths and passions, and we want to give you spaces to empower you and to find those. And so probably a lot of you know of the ones you see, but I want to tell you about a couple ones that we don't talk about often that I think are helpful for maybe some of you. We have a volunteer administrative team that works throughout the week outside of Sunday to help things happen here. There's a lot of administrative pieces that need to function, and some of the best ways we care for you is having a strong admin team. And so maybe you have time through the week, or we also have a group of volunteers that help with some of the maintenance and the care of this large facility, and that have a little bit more talent than myself around some of these things. Duct tape cannot cure everything. So maybe that's yourself. Maybe you have time throughout the week and where you're at in your stage of life or your season that can maybe help with a couple of those. Those are just another place that you could serve. Attend, serve, and thirdly, give. We are at a community that are built of the generosity of many. And so many of you have invested in this place before it was what it is today. And so much of what we want to do and what we feel God's calling us to and the leadership team is pushing forward will go at the speed of resource, meaning the speed of investment into those things. And so if you call Forest City your home, we would love for you to consider partnering with us financially. And why we talk about this often is because we believe this is such a big aspect of following Jesus, that your discipleship to Jesus is connected to this piece. And we don't want you to ignore it, because I think you're ignoring a significant part of your formation. And so maybe it just looks, starting for you, maybe it just looks like 1% or something, or just committing to a number and making that faithful commitment each month. But we just want to invite you in that process. And that's what it looks like to be part of our family. Fourth and lastly is to invite. We planted Forest City not just so you all have another church option to go to on Sunday morning. We planted Forest City because we want to be a beacon of light. We want to be a place for people who do not have community to find community. And the reality is, each and every one of you have people in your life who don't have a community like this. Each and every one of you knows somebody that's probably desperate, looking for a place to find purpose, for people to be vulnerable with, a place of connection, and they just don't have anything like that in their life. Maybe they're a bit unsure of Jesus. Maybe they have some presumptions of what church is and this and that. But I think what a beautiful way for you to champion this place is to find those who yet to have community to find it. If this place has been meaningful to you, if you found friends here, if you found the rejuvenation in your faith here, what greater joy would it be? What greater gift then is to invite someone else in to experience the same thing you have? And so would you find a place, would you find someone, would you be praying about who could you invite? Maybe there's some of the things that we talked about, but we want to be a place that's continually opening our doors and having a space for those who yet to have community to experience the power that Jesus brings to their life.
Yeah, so like Jordan said, there's many, many ways to get involved and to be a part of what's happening here. This isn't just based on Jordan or I or the team that serves or the lead team, but this is a community, and you need hands, you need feet, you need ears, you need eyes, you need elbows more than you think. But the success of Forest City is built on the life transformation of this community. That is truly, you can have a great building. There's lots of great buildings. There's lots of buildings way better than this building. There's lots of great music or great things that you can find. But when you find community and you are rooted there, that is invaluable. And we had a conversation with an individual this week, and we'll call him Ryan. That's not his real name. He told us we could share this story. But Ryan's an individual who grew up with faith, but since his young adult years, faith had kind of slipped. It wasn't really a priority since he left home, and just not something that was super active in his life. And through conversations, he eventually accepted an invitation to come to Forest City. And through the last couple of years, he's developed a community here, and he's developed rhythms here, and his faith has been re-engaged in a way in his adult life that it hadn't been for many, many years. And he was just saying, I've never had community since living in the Lower Mainland. I haven't had a place that feels like I go there every week and I look forward to it, and I see people, and being in a small group where people know my name, and all of these pieces. And we've heard story after story like this, that people, whether they've had faith at a certain point of their life or they are brand new to Christianity in general, we've just heard the wrestle and the life transformation and the feeling of belonging and the feeling of community. That is what makes us excited. That is what makes Forest City a place that we are excited to invite people to, that people feel like this is home. People feel like this is a safe place to ask questions, to have doubts, to wrestle with what does my life look like with faith, and to be able to find a place in a living room that it's like, we missed you last week, where were you? These are why we do what we do, because we know that the journey of faith and the journey of pursuing what it looks like to follow Jesus is best done in community. And so we really hope that today this is exciting, because this isn't just something that we are doing, that we're like, hey, hear what we're doing, but we're saying this is something we all want you to be a part of. We all want to be in this boat and paddling together, that this is a full church commitment. And we are excited to see as that continues to overflow into the city and the community and the places that you go to school and the places that you go to work and your families, that there would just be life that percolates in a way that is different than anything else people are experiencing. So we are excited about this. We're excited about this vision. We're excited about Forest City. It's so wonderful. Every time we hear, oh, I've heard about Forest City, I've heard great things. We've heard that a lot. And so we just want as many people to get involved and feel known and loved. So we're really excited. Anything else you want to add, Jordan?
No, I think we should wrap up.
Mm-hmm.
So want to invite you to stand. The team's going to come back, and we're going to respond with a song, as we usually do. I'm inviting the prayer team to come up. And I just want to take a moment to pray for us as a community. Because as exciting as where things are at with Forest City right now, we always want to be aware that we want to make Jesus so beautiful here. We just want people to meet Jesus in profound ways. And so we just know that what we can do, there's a part that we do, but there's a part that God does in that. And so we're just so excited of the diversity of this room, and each of you coming together and finding your place and what that looks like. So could I pray for you? And the team will be here and we'll respond. Jesus, Jesus, may we just be image bearers of you. May we just be mirrors reflecting your beauty for the world to see. So as we celebrate what you've done, as we look forward to what's next, and just have a really excitement and energy for the things that you're doing in this community, May we just be reminded that it's the smallest thing. It just takes one of us to just fully commit to what you're doing in our life and to reflect that to the community around us. So may we as a community, may myself and may each one of us, my brothers and sisters, may we become the type of community that is a light on a hill. May we just be a beacon of hope for people in this season. So Lord, I pray for us as a community. May you unite us. May you encourage us. May we continue to be the things that you've called us to be. In Jesus' name, amen.